Hi, my name is Toya Kaplan. Today I want to introduce a series of videos called Vulnerable No More. Before I go into the details of those videos, I want to talk to you for a minute about the background behind these videos. We originally started a residential program for women who have been sex trafficked called Freedom House. And I'm going to step back just a little bit further to talk to you about what motivated that journey in my own life. And in doing so, I need to talk to you for a second about what I would call my testimony. So to describe my understanding about how these people become vulnerable to sex trafficking. So as a 4-year-old in my life, I ended up being molested by a neighbor next door. I believe in looking back now that I understand more deeply how that set me up to become so much more vulnerable to other people controlling my life, certainly to questioning my own self, what my value was, I would say, in a huge way. So as an 11-year-old, I was in a family where we'd already gone through divorce. My father was alcoholic. I'd had ongoing sexual abuse in my home by a family member. It all compiled into this just big perfect storm where I then ended up starting to use drugs, smoking cigarettes, drinking. It just led me in the direction of that path where I think I just didn't understand what had happened to me was affecting now the decisions I was making. And so if there was a group of people and somebody in that group was going to be date drugged, it would be me. If there was some sort of a new drug I might try out, then I was the first one to do that and try that out. And I think I was just so uninhibited in that way between self-medicating and just being so lost internally after being abused that way as a child. As I continued to get older and older, it got just crazier situations. When I look back now, that as a 20-year-old, I finally ended up in church, and that was a big journey to even get there because I was pushing back at everything. On September 7th, 1980, I actually entered a church, and during that service, I was born again. And there'll be people that are watching this video that disagree or don't believe that, and I'm fine with that. I'm going to tell you, though, that on September 7th, 1980, my life changed completely. So moving forward from that point on, as I started experiencing healing and health and real freedom from the person that I was based on those things that were inflicted upon me, I wanted to start helping young people and figure out how I could get plugged in. I had actually lived in a children's home when I was 15 to 17 years old in New Orleans. I started looking back at that experience and how I had heart for those girls. Even in my own brokenness, I wanted to somehow help them. So I started trying to look for ways to work with women to help empower children. How could I work at a children's home? And because I didn't have experience or the education for it, I was never able to do that. But as I experienced forgiveness towards my mother, who was very physically abusive and verbally abusive, it really caused me to crave and desire helping other people. And how could I do that? So fast forward, after I had my children and was working very full-time job, I started begin to think of what would, now that my children are grown, what would that look like now? What will I get behind? I think 53 years old at the time. I was trying to think, what am I passionate about? Well, I thought back years before that where I'd heard a group from Moldova talk about sex trafficking. It was in another country. I was appalled. I had 3 daughters at the time who were around the same age of the girls that were speaking at the church where we were at about the trafficking that they were saved out of in Moldova. So at that time, there's no way I could have gone and really reached forward into any kind of ministry. I couldn't go to Moldova. I was still raising my kids. We could only get behind financially to help support their ministry. But it stuck somewhere deep inside of me that there was some way I needed to do more to impact the situation of sex trafficking. Years later, I actually heard about an organization here in town in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that was doing a ministry on the streets, and it was called Spoken For. And I reached out to the director of that group, who explained to me what they were doing, what sex trafficking looks like here in New Mexico and in the United States. And I was so impassioned. I had my daughters with me. We actually went to that meeting and heard from her heart what was happening in New Mexico and in the United States. And we asked, her name's Shelley Repp, we asked her then, what needs to happen to help? What can we do other than philanthropically? How can we help? and she told us that a home was needed. And so that became our next journey. My daughter Danielle and I sought out for a year. We trained and prepared for this next venture, this, I would say, calling to go in to this community and open this home. A year later, we opened our home, Freedom House. We helped over 3 years a group of women. There ended up being a total of 7. There's so much trauma and brokenness that's taken place in the lives of these women that it's very difficult to navigate the care of each one of these individuals and do it in excellence. You know, we could cram 6 people in that house, or we could do it slowly, and that's how we ended up doing it. So 7 years came to the house. We helped other people and collaborated with other groups during that time. But that experience of having that home for those 3 years is actually what transitioned us into FortheOne. It is a phase 3 ministry that works with girls and boys, frankly. What matters is that they come from sex trafficking. And so once they go through phase 1 and 2, our home was a 3-phase ministry. They detox, they're looking forward to their future, they're ready now to move into their own place. All those healthy next steps. Phase 3 is where we step in and we bring some financial aid for emergencies. There's so many different things that you wouldn't even believe we've been able to partner with these phase 3 survivors. Just like a high school child that's going off to college, they still need our support as parents. We also still need to reach out to these phase 3 survivors who become vulnerable again. They become vulnerable to compromise, to trafficking, to being controlled by a person in their life, which would speak that they should go and sell themselves again in order to pay that bill, in order to be able to even get an attorney to get custody of their child back. Our focus is to come and bring financial support so they know they're not alone. We have community with our existing survivors. So they know they have a place to go and talk and brainstorm, think through hard times, and help them make good decisions when they ask us for help. And we collaborating with other organizations, so that's our focus. How can we bring strength to them? How can we come and undergird their ministry, their existing ministry, with finances, so when somebody comes and asks them for help, maybe they can buy 1 tire, but they need 4. FortheOne can come and buy the additional 3 for them. They have those funds available when the girls, the survivors, whoever they're working with needs help. As we focused more on bringing awareness to our community, the other thing that we've been frustrated by is that the numbers are not changing very much, just through the awareness perspective. I know there's pockets of people that are being saved from this insidious, crime and control. I know there's some out there, but we're not seeing a huge focus or a huge effect of this awareness type of presentations. So as I was thinking about us being phase 3, the next thing that came to me is we have to focus on how in every case these children, these adults are vulnerable. So no matter how they're trafficked, that it starts with a vulnerability. And that even means like families that traffic their children. They're vulnerable because they're children and they have no control. But it's also the ones that are 17 years old and somebody online has befriended them and has come in and actually began to talk what they know they want to hear, speak that into their lives, so they make their way into their heart. So there's so many examples, and we'll get to that later with regards to topically. This campaign that we are setting out on right now is a campaign called Vulnerable No More. And our intent is to go out through social media and eventually through events, when it's allowed again, free events, to speak to 12 to 100-year-old, right now, females, to empower them with information that will uncover the strategy of traffickers and recruiters, these children and young adults who are being targeted. These traffickers take their time and they're very patient until they have them, and then they become very impatient. But we want to expose that. We want to show the community one video at a time, break it down so it's very understandable to moms, dads, grandparents, to your children, to teachers and your students, to be able to show these videos in short 10 to 15 minute segments that you can play either in groups or send it out to your friends. This is something we can all agree upon. This is wrong. We've got to create a way to share this information in the community. We are going out via these videos with other specialists that will come on and talk to us. Shelley Rep will be doing our 101 human trafficking. She's going to do a 10 to 15 minute segment on that. And then we're going to have Anthony Mays, and he's a specialist here with the AG's office. We're going to have him talk about online predators and what's going on right now with that. My daughter Danielle and I, who co-founded with me Freedom House, she'll be coming on, and we're going to discuss how you teach people how to treat you. So it's about sex trafficking, but it's also practical information about building up inside of our children and our friends around us a way to say no. There's 3 sisters in my family. I have a older sister who was 4 years older than me, and an older sister who's 2 years older than me, and I was 4. The middle sister was told, you should just say no and run. She did that. So the same neighbor that molested me and molested my oldest sister did not molest that middle sister. And I'm not saying this is a guarantee that won't happen. What I'm saying is we have to start having these important conversations with our children now so that they're bold and brave enough in that situation. We've practiced some of this. What are practical ways? How do we learn to use our voices and say no? No, because even some of the people that we got that are survivors, that was one of the hardest things. That's what you find. That's the vulnerability that these traffickers are looking for. They smell it in the water. We're going to expose that and uncover that. It is time to empower this community to fight back. I am so sick of watching our children become statistics. And I know there's other women out there like me, other men, other grandparents that have had it. We just sit here and watch this cancer consume our kids. So this is not to cause fear. This is to empower you and your children. We're going to turn the tide on these numbers. The heartbeat of this ministry is FortheOne. We may not be able to save the 32 billions, trillions. We may not be able to affect all of those, but by God, we can help the one in front of us. We can help our own children, our own grandchildren. I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old granddaughters right now, and I'm telling you, just like my own kids, they will not fall prey to this, and yours don't have to either. You can empower them, infuse them with a self-identity, stop this stuff, and believe your children when they talk to you, if they come to you and try to expose something that's happened to them. I'm asking you all to watch these videos, forward these videos, follow us, share it, because I'm only one person. I send it to everybody I can when I get information. You can do that. You can take this information. If you see it's empowering, if it can help the people in your sphere, in your circle of influence. The traffickers are not asleep during COVID, and they're not going to sleep ever, because this is a business. This is their money. This is their pocketbook. They don't look at your children like people. They're a commodity. They're a way to make money for them. Let's stop this together. We can do more together. Help me as a community to share this. And I thank you for your time, and I appreciate you following us.